Did you know much about Trudeau before that sort of came on your radar?
No, no. All I knew is that a fellow who had been a technician when I was at Harvard had gone there to work as a technician, David Christie, and he went to work with Robert North, who was the director, was director there for a very long time, and that was, and I took over when Bob North stepped down.
And you brought along Dr. Dutton as well, is that correct?
Oh,
or how did that work?
Yes, that was great.
That was part of the negotiation?
Oh, absolutely. And we brought 13 people from California, so despite the fact that we moved from one of the most clement climates in San Diego to Saranac Lake, which is gorgeous, but I'd say it's a challenging climate. Yeah, a lot of people came with us, and of course that helped ensure that we had a smooth transition and could remain productive.
From various institutions in La Jolla, or did they all come from
No,
the
they were
university?
from our lab.
And how many? 13?
13. Mm-hmm. Almost everybody in the lab came with us.
Is that unusual for such a migration?
I think people were surprised, yeah. So that's I mean, so we must have done a good job convincing them.
Well, it's a tribute to your magnetism, I would say.
Well, I hope so.
So how did you find things at the Institute when you arrived?
Well, they had been sort of, I guess Bob had been sort of scaling down, so there weren't very many faculty. I think there were 6 faculty, and it had a way. It needed to be brought into the new world of science, and so that was very exciting. I had the resources to do that. We recruited wonderful people, and that was very good. And we did create, I think, an unusual environment in which we stressed collaboration. We had a fairly limited physical space, so we told people that you cannot have you cannot have a lab of 25 people. You're sort of limited, and so what we would like is for the different people who have different attitudes and skills to collaborate. And that was sort of part of the principle on which we recruited people. And so by doing that, we recruited people who liked that idea. And I think there's a huge strength in science in collaboration, and not the sort of forced collaboration where you are told you have to collaborate, but by, for some grant for a particular purpose, but sort of the collaboration that comes from learning about what somebody is doing, and realizing that there's something you could do together that you couldn't do apart. And because we were isolated, and because our welfare really was clearly, interdependent on how all of us did, I think it was easy to forge very strong scientific collaborations.
So collaboration is how you all operated together, but what lines of direction did you take scientifically?
So what I had several things I wanted to do several sort of scientific concepts when I moved in. The first was to sort of take the reductionist analytic approaches that we had used in vitro and apply them to in vivo studies of infectious disease, using transgenic mice, using genetically manipulated mice, and other tools, high throughput analysis of FACS, fluorescent activated flow cytometry, and other approaches such as that. I was extremely lucky that we recruited really talented people. We recruited Fran Lund and Troy Randall, David Woodland and Marcy Blackman, Marcus Moores, Laura Haynes, Andrea Cooper from TB, and so we had a diverse, Steve Smiley. We had a diverse group of people, but they were all talented, highly talented, and with different approaches, but all of us interested in how the immune system can deal with infectious disease. So we had a real focus, and I think that was a time when people were very concerned about influenza, very concerned about bioterrorism, so we could be quite successful at gathering the funding necessary to conduct high-quality research, and I think the Institute became really very well known for that research. I mean, there had been very fine scientists there before, but perhaps it didn't have quite the outside recognition that it gained over the next decade.
And these people you just named, were they in addition to the folks that came with you from California?
Yeah, so the folks that came with me were people in my lab, people in our labs. They weren't other faculty.
They were not other faculty?
No. By and large, they weren't. I think one was, but yeah.
And did you have problems attracting postdocs to Trudeau, or techs even?
Yeah, so there was certainly a challenge. So the challenge is the spousal challenge. It's a very small town, and somebody comes with a spouse, and the spouse needs to work, or and so either you hire. So we had many couples. Either you hire the spouse, or they find a job, and there's obviously, you know, it depends on what their line of work is, whether that's possible. But we did what we could to make it an attractive environment. Aside from what I've mentioned, we had lots of seminars. We had faculty housing and postdoc housing right on campus, a beautiful campus overlooking the lake and the mountains, and that was very attractive. And so we have, when we built an extension, and we were able, with a generous donation, to put in a daycare center that operated at the same hours as the Institute was open. So all these things were draws, and we actually got exceptional postdocs. And we also got very highly skilled technical staff, because there are people who wanted to live in the area. So we were very lucky to have, so I would say it was actually a positive, not a negative.